To give your sentences energy and action, avoid the verbs to be and to have as much as possible. It's not easy. Avoiding to be and to have takes hard work, but doing so can take your writing from good to great, or from meh to good. Of the 85 most commonly used words in the English language, 7 come from the verbs to be and to have. It is so easy to use to be and to have. See, I just did it again. So what's wrong with passive verbs? Well, the first thing is it lacks energy. Look at the 3 sentences on top written passively. Then look at the 3 sentences below with clear action verbs. These sentences not only provide energy, they also provide more information. Pause the video to look at it more carefully. Another problem with to be and to have is that it causes confusion. Too often they make it hard to say who's responsible for what. So for example, the cave paintings of Lascaux were made in the Upper Old Stone Age. Were made? By whom? When? Under what circumstances? The more passive the construction, the more you miss this information. The same goes for this passage. An experimental solar power plant will be built in the Australian desert. Who's building it? Where? When? How? Passivity breeds uncertainty and vagueness. Another problem with to be and to have is that it avoids responsibility. When politicians commit major mistakes, they struggle to take responsibility for their actions. Frequently, they say mistakes were made, but they never say who made those mistakes. Most famously, Richard Nixon's press secretary, Ron Ziegler, made this statement: "Mistakes were made in terms of comments." But he wasn't the only one. Now it's your turn. Take a piece of your own writing. Search for every instance of to be and to have. Now eliminate every use of these passive verbs. Replace each with an action verb to enable the reader to see, hear, and feel what happened. Not all passive verbs are bad. Sometimes passive verbs make it easier to make a point. And sometimes the point is actually to show passivity. Just resolve that you will use the verbs to be and to have consciously, not lazily, and only when you can't use an action verb. Use to be and to have to reveal passivity. Sometimes you want the subject not to be acting, but to be acted upon. In Travels with Charlie, John Steinbeck says, "His pale eyes were frosted with the sun glare." In this case, the subject is a passive figure. He's being acted upon. Sometimes you can use to be and to have to speak more directly about what's going on, about what's important. So, for example, the bicyclist was struck by the car. In this case, the car is not the main point. The main point is the bicyclist. There he is, riding along, and he got struck. You put the bicyclist at the center of this piece. The other way to do it would be to say the car struck the bicyclist, but that puts the emphasis on the car. Sometimes you want the object of an action to take precedence over the doer of the action. There's another reason to use to be and to have, and that is for poetic effect. Take a look at this passage from the Bible, from Isaiah. "Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain." Sometimes the passage just sounds better with the passive voice, as long as you don't obscure the main points. You know this passage, right? You wouldn't want it any other way. It comes from Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, and so on. Pause the video and look it over and see the power of an occasional passive voice. The overarching rule for all writing is simple. Use action verbs, but If you can say something faster or better with to be and to have, go ahead. Now it's your turn. Which of the following uses of the passive voice makes sense? What might work better? His lawn got mowed last week. Suddenly I was overtaken by a desire for revenge. She was tired by the end of her shift. After I was fired, I took an online course to sharpen my skills. Sometimes action verbs work better, and sometimes to be and to have words work better. Figure out which is which.